parents spent $2,000 to build a 12-foot by 36-foot boat to escape Vietnam with their 3-year-old daughter, 1-year-old son, and 28 other people. After a year in Malaysian and Philippine refugee camps, my uncle sponsored them to come to Texas, and they bore another son in their first year on American soil. I was the youngest child and born in Dallas. When I was 5, my parents bought their first house in Carrollton, a predominantly white neighborhood. Once I went to school, I couldn't help but feel very different. I don't look like my classmates. My parents are 5'5" and 5'3", so I'm genetically engineered to be tiny. My hair was straight and jet black, but I always drew self-portraits with curly hair. Most kids would buy their lunch from school or bust out with 4-course Lunchable meals. My parents stuffed sticky rice wrapped in banana leaves in my lunchbox, even though I begged them for sandwiches and chips. If I ever did get a hot lunch at school, it was at a discounted rate. I felt ashamed that we needed help when it seemed like none of the white kids did. I was feeling particularly melancholy on a school bus ride home from a field trip to the museum. I had a lot of friends, but there was no one person who understood my most intimate thoughts. I let my head bang against the rattling window to numb my pain. My seatmate Carrie looked at me worriedly and asked if I was okay. I lied and said I had a headache because I didn't know how to communicate that I was having an existential crisis. Not knowing how to compromise the two worlds I was caught in between made me feel very insecure about my identity. The summer was a wonderful time to feel free, except my mom never let me spend the night at my school friends' houses. She made it seem like I would be a burden to the other kids' parents, but I think she didn't want to have to converse with them when she came to pick me up. I was segregated and forced to hang out with family members and church people of my own race. My sister taught our Asian gang how to play blackjack in the office of my dad's upholstery shop. Customers would walk in to get a chair repaired, interrupting an underground gambling ring of money-hungry kids. When it was time to go back to school, my peers would reconvene with tales of elusive summer camp. The notion of camping really taunted me. My girlfriends came back with cool friendship bracelets and exciting new pen pals. All I had to share was a lifelong debt of $13.25 due to my aggressive nature of wanting to double down on 16. What sort of wild, crazy adventures happened on camping trips? I imagined beautiful landscapes painted in my mind from movies I had seen. I dreamt of singing with Julie Andrews through snow-capped mountains, in handmade yet stylish curtain clothing. Thickets of dense bushes I could cut through with my machete accompanied by Mowgli. Or the possibility of meeting an unknown twin sister as attractive as Lindsay Lohan and becoming best friends for life. When I was in 5th grade, my parents told me we would be taking a road trip to an annual pilgrimage called Marion Days in Carthage, Missouri. 28 acres of sanctuary grounds turned into a campsite for Vietnamese Catholics from across the states. 3 days of listening to priests preach the gospel, going to confession, and morning mass and evening mass. My parents told me it'd be a great way to build a relationship with God, but all I heard was camping. We packed the car with a tent, sleeping bags, flashlights, and a cooler of food. I couldn't wait to recount my experience to friends at school. I imagined myself as the center of attention at the lunch table, sharing stories of hilarious mishaps, and being instantly catapulted into school fame and notoriety. The actual logistics of getting there proved to be unpleasant. 2 adults and 4 kids crammed into our white 1989 Toyota Camry. We piled blankets on the floor so that it would be level with the back seat and acted as a giant bed for us kids. It was impossible not to get a random elbow or a foot in my face. My dad had a penchant for hitting the gas and then immediately applying the brake. We had to listen to my parents' agonizing Vietnamese love songs, so I made myself sleep the entire way. When we finally arrived, it was nightfall. Thousands of Vietnamese people had set up tents next to their sedans and minivans. There were extension cords running rampant to power small air conditioning units and boom boxes. Everyone had a small gas burner to toast squid. Squatting was the sitting position of choice. We were free to explore the grounds during the day, as long as we came back to the tent for Mass in the evening. Behind the main stage was the eating area. There were 20 pop-up restaurants serving different kinds of sketchy Vietnamese food. To the left, merchants were hawking all sorts of paraphernalia, from lacy fans for the elderly to whoopee cushions for the children. Most kids spent their time at the square to show off their breakdancing skills to excessively loud trance music. Camping meant that I had to use public restrooms for option 1 and 2. Popping a squat whilst having a poo with a line of people waiting outside peeping through the cracks to see when you're done was too much pressure for me. I decided to hold my bowel movements until I got home, which my brothers affectionately referred to as travel mode. I hadn't realized camping meant you had to be outside all day. As a suburban kid, used to the air-conditioned confines of my home, I found this incredibly difficult as it was excruciatingly hot. My Umbro shorts stuck to my legs, and I wondered why people willingly subjected themselves to this kind of torture. I sought refuge in the gift shop, with no one to accompany, but portraits of saints staring down on my humbled self. This was not the glorious camping trip I had imagined. I always thought that if I went camping, I would be like everyone else. I buried my feelings deep down as I continued school and went on to study at the University of Texas in Austin. In my last summer as a college student, I went camping with some friends. We set up tents in New Braunfels and went tubing down the Comal River. It was awesome and made me nostalgic about my first camping trip. Even though it didn't meet my expectations, it was actually amusing. I love toasted squid. And squatting comes so naturally to me. I realized I am happy to be both Vietnamese and American, leaving no need to bang my head against a window.